While most of us are happy with the safety of three-point seatbelts and airbags, some people need a little more protection, like bulletproof glass and run-flat tires. For a look at the latest in armored vehicle protection, Fred Carucci, the general manager of Alpine Armor, gives us a tour of an inconspicuous yet nearly impregnable Jeep Cherokee.
What we have here is a Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo version, 1997. We have armored this vehicle, made it bullet resistant towards all handguns, including 9mm, .357 Magnum, and .44 Magnum. This vehicle has only 650 pounds added to it. So essentially, by driving it, it is not noticeable that it is armored. In other instances that the level of protection may go higher, the weight becomes an issue. In this particular vehicle, because of the unibody aspect of Grand Cherokee, we have used Spectra, which is a composite ballistic material used by Ally Signal to keep the weight down. The glass itself is probably 60–65% of the weight of the vehicle, and the other 40% is the composite material. We have used the material in the doors, the front and rear, the bottom of the vehicle, and then essentially we go all the way back to the tailgate. The tires, as we see here, they look standard. It's a low-profile style vehicle for executives. That means you cannot tell this vehicle is armored. Next to that, we have the tailgate of the vehicle, which looks like a normal tailgate of the car, except that it is cocooned completely against all assaults by handguns. But for this particular unit, we have made it suitable for the domestic use in the United States. Now let me talk about another feature in our vehicle. We have a James Bond box. Let's say, for example, you have some unwanted guests chasing you, and you don't want them to be behind you. At a push of a button in this particular box, you can use your tear gas or smoke screen to deter them. Now, this is pretty effective, and we believe that you can get away from any dangerous situation. Okay, now you're ready to take on the streets of New York.
And Fred Carucci joins us live now, along with some accessories that he sells to complement those armored cars. We'll get to those in a moment, Fred. But when most people think about an armored car, you think about either the Brinks truck or the car that the president rides in, the limousine. Those are armored cars. But who else, obviously, if you sold only to those people, you wouldn't have much of a business. Who else buys armored cars?
Well, as you said, the consensus is that most people are using this because they're carrying cash or some important commodities in it. But the reality is that as a result of all the democracies springing out throughout the world, we see more and more dangerous places, cities like in Moscow, the Philippines, South America, and Eastern Europe, and all the former Soviet Union republics are becoming more and more dangerous. And as a result, a lot of executives and government officials, other important people whom we don't know what they really do, have a serious need for this kind of...
So a lot of your sales are overseas?
A great majority of them, approximately 90% of it.
Really? When you armor a car, what is involved there? How heavily armored is it? The average car. And let's take the Jeep Cherokee or something even a little bit bigger if you want.
Well, it varies depending on the level of protection, of course.
Okay, and there's the Jeep Cherokee we're looking at right now. That's a little more heavily armored than the one that you shot this afternoon.
Correct. This particular one is not a low-profile type, meaning this is obviously an armored-looking one. We use this particular unit for escort purposes. As you see, there are gun ports everywhere, and it's meant to be a somewhat intimidating looking in case people want to, come and just do something with it.
Now, speaking of intimidating looking, there's a vehicle that's already somewhat intimidating looking, and that's the Hummer. And you've done an armored job on one of those as well. We're taking a look at that right now.
Yes, Hummer, as you know, is a very aggressive looking vehicle, is very versatile. And this particular unit was used in Siberia, I believe, in a gold mine. And it really takes a special customer for that, and we're trying to promote that because it has a great deal of capability as far as payload, and also the fact that it's relatively easy to armor.
Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at these, we're looking at the outside, but you also armor the inside of the vehicle as well. Tell us about
that. Absolutely. We do the interior, we do the floor, we do the roof, and we do
That's
all
a shot
the
of the roof
sidings.
that we're looking at now of what kind of vehicle?
This is that
Jeep?
Jeep Grand Cherokee
Okay.
earlier we looked at. The roof, as you see, has a Spectra shield. This is a composite material which is very light as opposed to asterloid steel, which is used in trucks and heavier payload vehicles. We use that simply because it's lighter and in some cases is not as expensive if we use it properly.
Okay. The tires also, not necessarily armored. I mean, it'd be tough to do that because they've got to run on the road, but they are reinforced.
Well, there is a term for it, and it is a device, we call it a run-flat device, which is installed around the rim of every vehicle.
And there's a cutaway section there of the, what are we seeing in that cutaway section?
Well, the orange piece is actually a run-flat device installed around the rim. In reality, when the tire is shot or it goes flat, you can literally drive on it for 30, 40, 50 miles without any difficulty.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and we still have all of these nice little accessories to talk about. And when the Most Toys returns, Fred will be taking your calls, answering any questions you may have about armored cars, oil slicks, smoke screens, and some of this stuff in front of us. Our toll-free number, 1-800-304-FNET. So dial us up during the break. And let's get to them. First of all, how many people will opt for these accessories in addition to their vehicle?
Well, we have this device is mostly used by our law enforcement officials as well as certain individuals that are always in dangerous areas. This particular unit is, for example...
let's take the helmet first, if we can. Okay.
Well, the helmet is obviously a law enforcement device product that is used by government officials, police, special SWAT teams around the world. You seldom see that used by individuals going to office, for example.
Right. I mean, it's got to be a riot situation,
exactly,
or
yes.
at least the possibility of one. And the shield next to it was a shield that was on a similar helmet?
This shield is exactly the same shield as you see over there, with the exception that it's already been shot 3 times. And the level of this one is a handgun, 9mm, at a distance of approximately 10 meters, which is about 30 feet. Yes.
And I felt the back of that. There was no penetration there at all. There's a little protrusion, but no penetration.
No penetration at all. Well, if it penetrates, obviously it defeats the purpose.
Right. Give me an example of how much these items would cost as accessories in addition.
Not as much as people might think. Considering the fact that lives are at stake, and by using this, literally you could distinguish between one's living and not living. We're talking about really, really nominal fees, few $100s.
Give me an example. A few $100 for the helmet.
Yes.
And we have the bulletproof vest as well.
Even this one, it varies.
Can you hold that up, Fred, so we can get a good view of it?
Yes, this is a heavy piece because of the plate that is a trauma plate. This is a level 4, which is the highest level of protection available, armor-piercing level. We have inserted it here just to allow it to be extra protection. But otherwise, it's pretty light. You can lift it with one hand, actually.
Okay, let's go to the phones now. You ready?
Okay, yes.
Jason in California, you've got the first question for Fred.
Hi. I'd like to know what kind of modifications have you done to, say, exotic cars like a Ferrari, Lamborghini, or even like the Dodge Viper? And is the glass that you use, that bulletproof glass, is it that I've heard there was some new type where it was very, very thin, about as thin as regular glass. Is that the type of stuff that you use also?
All right, we got 2 questions here. Let's take them one at a time.
Good question. As far as exotic cars, Jason, really very rarely you find someone who really has an interest in that kind of vehicle. We've had some Jaguar XK8, which is a very new model that has just come out, and we have had few Ferraris in the past, but very, very sporadic. The problem with those is that the weight becomes an issue, and therefore the performance of the car is compromised heavily. And usually for those people who are very keen on the performance of a Ferrari, for example, do not wish to have the performance compromised, and not to mention the engineering of the car can be affected as well.
Okay, and real quickly, the quality of the thinner bulletproof glass?
As far as we know, the higher the level of protection, the thicker the glass, unfortunately. There is really no technology right now that gives you the same thickness and still gives you a high protection.
Right. Okay, let's take another call. Max in Iowa, go ahead with your question.
Hi, can I find out how fast the car goes with a flat tire?
Well, we have two types of run flat devices. It is advised not to drive more than 35 miles per hour because the purpose is to get away, not to continue driving. And there is the other one, which is a high pursuit type. You can drive as fast as 60, 70 miles per hour. But there is a ratio involved here. The faster you go, the quicker it wears out. If you continue at 35 miles per hour, it will last for a long time.
And needless to say, people will get a complete set of these tires and put them on their vehicle,
Definitely.
as opposed to just two.
Absolutely. All four tires. In fact, the spare tires, even, we put them in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sean in Kentucky, what's your question? Okay, we've got Danny in Texas with a question. Danny? Well, all right, we've lost our callers there. A couple of other accessories that were very interesting to me that I saw in the brochure. You can get quite a shock if you try to get into the car and it's not yours.
Absolutely. It's amazing the technology has advanced so much, and a lot of these devices are really relatively inexpensive. The door shock, for example, electric shock, that essentially says, look, don't touch my car because otherwise, you're going to get an electric shock.
How heavy a jolt?
About 12, 15 volts. It's not going to, damage or cause any, serious injury, but it's enough for you to say, look, I'm not going to touch this vehicle again.
And some of the others that we were talking about, the smoke screens, the oil slicks, things we've seen in every 007 film, but
Exactly.
you can really get that for your own car.
It used to be very inaccessible. In fact, it used to be that you couldn't get those. But nowadays, they're available. And there is another device which is recently available in the market, and it essentially drops nails on the road. And you can imagine the car behind you literally is going to drive over nails.
Okay, terrific. Thanks for the look, Fred Carucci. We appreciate you coming in. The company is Alpine Enterprises. Thanks for being here.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.